Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to Sovereign Gaming. So today we are still kind of hanging out in the government plaza of the SimCity Create a World build. And the reason for that is because now that we have got all of the land kind of sorted here, I've got the shape that I've liked, I'm going to move on and do a little bit of water work actually, as you can see on screen. So yeah, one of the biggest features of this map is actually going to be the way that the water looks, or at least to me, I think that that's going to be the biggest feature of the map. Now, the problem is just that I just lack a lot of confidence when it comes to texturizing the water and whatnot. So it is something that I'm a little self-conscious about it, if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. But at the end of this video, I kind of get it into a spot where I am liking it, although I'm sort of questioning about it. Anyways, I'll ask you guys questions as we go along here, but I also wanted to just take a moment to reassure you that this won't be the final version of how the water looks. I more so just really wanted to try and tie in the themes that I really wanted to emulate within the SimCity build here. So that's really the focus of today's video, is just kind of getting the basics of the water texture down so that I understand like where to take the style and all of that. So yeah, that's how it all goes down here in today's episode. And it's something that, like I mentioned before, I was okay with it at the end of this video, but of course I'm always open to suggestions and all of that. I'm sure that the sides of these train tunnels in the SimCity Harbor have been bothering you, because they have been bothering me, and that's why I have decided to do some terrain work with it. And by the way, I think that that's kind of the secret sauce in all of the water texture work, is really just messing around with the terrain and the depth levels and so on, because like you've seen me paint before, the terrain texture is actually one that I downloaded from the Sunlit Tides pack created by Martine, if I remember correctly. So a big shout out goes to them as well, because that pack is honestly the best. That's what I'm using for my grass textures, and that's what I'm going to be using now for this texture here as well. For the water, which really helps to make it pop in terms of a tropical look. But yeah, the sides of the train track tunnels, like that depth has always kind of bothered me, and in a way, like I sort of wish that I would have shifted everything over towards the left or westwards just a little bit, but I don't necessarily mind the gap there. It's just that the gap is a little skinny and that's kind of what I'm struggling with, is just really trying to find a proper terrain height for that. I end up changing it towards the end of the video, if I remember correctly, so it does go a little bit deeper there. But yeah, sometimes what that does is it kind of reveals some imperfections, such as some retaining walls just not reaching all the way down through. So I just took a quick minute while I was in the neighborhood, and I decided to add in an additional retaining wall to help it sink actually through the ground and make it look like the concrete is touching the terrain. The references that I ended up using to help guide me in terms of the water creation were great. Like, they're beautiful in terms of how the water looks and to emulate that tropical look and feel. I'm just not too sure if I'm actually really getting the reference properly in terms of them. So I used some really excellent worlds out there, excellent custom worlds such as Palm Shadows and Saint Manolia, and also Vice City. Those were worlds that I felt really did a really great job at creating a tropical feel with the water using this kind of paint. I also used the Sunlit Tides world itself as a source of inspiration, since, you know, that's the kind of textures I'm using, and that was really the look and feel that I was going for as well. But yeah, I use those references and they're great, and I just don't think that I've executed them perfectly. And I think that one observation that I was really making, and I mentioned it before, but it was really just adjusting the terrain height, like just to get those kind of grooves in the ocean and to really tell the story of sand builds up, appearing closer towards the shore, and having the water be a little deeper further out. When adjusting the terrain height and all that, like I also used the SimCity Harbor neighborhood as a reference point as well, just because that water there was actually super deep, and I wanted it a lot more shallower than that. First of all, just to make these brighter blues pop, but also because you can't actually see the terrain paint underneath the harbors. So that is something that I'm gonna have to adjust eventually, but that was something that I kept in mind as well, is that I still wanted the blue terrain paint to read through even in the deeper levels, just because it adds that hue to really tie it all together, to really communicate that this is one water body here. Like I mentioned, I will have to adjust the terrain heights in the harbor neighborhood just for the sea level there, but I don't know how that geography is really going to turn out, so I don't exactly know what I want to do specifically for that. But a height to what I eventually get to be the deepest point surrounding the government plaza might be something that I consider, just because it showed a really dark blue while also conveying the terrain paint that I used. Getting the ocean to actually meet up with this rocky seawall was another thing that I needed to fix, and that's why you'll see me go through with the smooth tool to just kind of create a little bit of a more cohesive marriage there between the two terrains. It does make a difference in terms of what that actually ends up looking like, but I also wanted to, I just wanted it to look nicer when it actually met with each other. Another thing that I ended up actually doing with this rock seawall that I had surround the government plaza the government campus, is that I ended up actually changing it to sand. I felt that the sand texture just kind of fit the theme overall a lot better, but yeah, it just looked nicer, and that was a look and feel that I ended up wanting to convey here. I actually did keep the rock textures and the old sand that I was using on the other side of the government campus, and I actually do end up keeping that in future builds because it kind of made a little more sense here that this would be a more sandy, a sort of beachy area, if I dare say so myself, on this side of SimCity, or at least within that little lagoon there, I suppose. Whereas, or I don't know if it's an actual lagoon, but within that inlet, I suppose. Whereas the other side is a little more exposed to the ocean and possibly even exposed to choppier waters. Yeah, so that was kind of something that I ended up doing, and something that I ended up keeping for the future, and we'll see if I end up keeping it at the end of the world build of the SimCity Create a World. So we'll see what happens with that, but I did like the rocky side on the west side of the government campus, and then the beachier, sandier side on the east side of the government campus. And I end up doing something cool with it too in an upcoming episode, but you'll just have to wait and see what I do with that there. With the water added in, I'm actually really seeing SimCity now come together in the vision that I am actually trying to create for this huge project. So I'm really glad to see that. I just hope that I'm able to communicate different ecosystems within SimCity appropriately whenever we actually get around to it. But yeah, for now, this is certainly something that I'm extremely happy with in terms of with how the water turned out. It serves as a really solid base, and that is something that I really wanted to emulate here. Another thing that I wanted to also explain is that in some of the reference pictures that I was using, or sorry, some of the references that I was using, and also with sunlit tides, there was also instances of coral underneath, and I'm really not sure how it really turned out at the end of this build, only because I feel like I had to do a lot of work with it, and I even do some work off camera just to try and get some sort of a look that seemed correct. Like, there are all these dark spots, and I'm just not too sure if I got the patterning right per se, but I think that I got the shape correct. But yeah, I think that maybe The issue here is just that I need to spread the coral, or the dark coral, just around the entire little bay / beach area that we've got going on. So that's something that I am now speaking out loud and possibly gonna head back and do. But yeah, the coral, like the dark spots in the coral, like it was in some of the references that I used, but not in all of them. And I really wanted to use them because I felt like it added a lot more dimension to the ocean and to the water. And so I decided that that was going to be a stylistic choice that I make and choose for the rest of this build. Just adding in those spots where you can, where there's those coral clusters. And yeah, and the idea really there is that it makes SimCity like a place for snorkeling, if that's something that that players want to play with. Oh, and speaking of snorkeling and island paradise features and all of that, I have no idea how to make a how to make a diving spot or a diving lot, and I've seen tutorials on how to do it, and I absolutely hate it. It is beyond my skill set for sure, just with all of the cheats and all that. But with that said, I'd be very open to downloading diving spots. And if it's just like an easy case of creating a lot in the middle of the ocean and just dropping in a diving spot, I'm totally open to it. I've mentioned this before, but I really wanted the SimCity world that I'm building now to be able to empower players with the capabilities to play with all features of the entire franchise. And so scuba diving is certainly one of those features in Island Paradise that I feel is very unique to the Island Paradise world, that other worlds really don't get to take advantage of for players that don't want to play in the Island Paradise world. So yeah, if there's like some good diving lots out there, feel free to drop a link in the comment section below. I'd be very interested in taking a look at that and seeing how it is, and seeing if it's possible to even just like download and drop into my world here. What's coming up next in my SimCity series is that we will be tackling the CBD, so the Central Business District. I didn't intentionally mean to actually develop the Central Business District. It just kind of happened on accident because I was trying to develop like a main city plaza that just sits in front of the government campus. And the reason being that we move on to that specific aspect of the SimCity build is just because it is something that is necessary, and it kind of links into all of the other urban neighborhoods that are going to be popping up here in SimCity. So yeah, it was certainly something that was extremely important to establish and to get taken care of here. And I do like how that turns out. So you'll be watching that occur on next episode, and you'll be watching how the CBD really just kind of builds out from itself and how it really lends itself into landing at the plaza. It's pretty cool. Yeah, so definitely stay tuned for that episode. As for the rest of the SimCity series here, I know I keep saying that we're gonna go back and fix some things here and there, and I really do mean that. And even though the water that I am deciding to texturize and to complete here is certainly something that I feel is still in the beginning stages, I wanted to at least convey the themes that I want to convey within the SimCity world, with the idea that it's still a work in progress. We can always go back and fix things and make it even more beautiful and allow it to really develop into itself there. So that has been the idea here with SimCity, is that there are a lot of projects that are going on. We're allowing the city and the features of the Sims franchise and the lore to really inform the shape of the geography. And Normally, I believe that creators would create the geography first and then put in the roads and the lots and all that, whereas I'm doing it the opposite way. I'm really allowing all of the features of the entire franchise to inform me of what I'm going to be doing here and what I wanted to emulate based on the lore and based on what we know about The Sims. So that's really kind of the catch-22 in all of this, is that I haven't built everything yet in terms of the terrain and the topography. And so because I'm kind of building it as we go, we're gonna have to go back and do some final detailing here. I do actually have an editing episode that is upcoming that'll be published in the near future. So you'll kind of get a grasp of what the idea here is when I say that we're gonna have to go back and add in some final touches and some final details. And that about does it for today's episode of the SimCity Create a World Build. I just want to thank you guys all for watching, and if you are invested in this series, if you've been enjoying it and you've been just having a good time, I just want you to hit that like button and feel free to subscribe as well. It certainly helps me battle those YouTube algorithms, and it helps us to really celebrate the Sims series as a whole as we kind of pay an homage to it and to really honor the experiences and the good memories that the Sims franchise, and I'm talking about all of the franchises, Sims 1 to Sims 4 and all that, and how they've all really given a lot of people a lot of great experiences and a lot of fun. So yeah, I just wanted to thank you again for watching at this time, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful day.